stream. Hi there. Wow, I look yellow and reddish like this is the 1970s. Okay, IG, guys. Hey, guys. Hey, Cotting Autumn. We are live on YouTube right now. We are in our final week for our book of the month club, which is Atomic Habits by James Clear. We will be discussing advanced tactics. You want to come over and see this, get your learning on, make these small atomic changes to get those remarkable results. Come on over, Anna. My link is in the bio. Homeschool Knockouts. That's my homeschool channel on YouTube. We will see you over there. Peace. Come on over, everyone. Okay. How do I end this? Okay. All right, guys. I'm sorry about that. No, I'm not sharing that. No. And no. Bye. Okay. What's up, peoples? Party peoples? Listen, y'all, for real, I'm only going to be here very short and brief. I've been outside all day. It is 99 degrees out here in LA, and I was out in LA for about almost 7 hours in that heat, and I'm exhausted. I had to reconstitute myself, but can't stop, won't stop. I'm here. For those of you, you know the rules, all my veterans, all my old heads, you know, when you come on into our space, please let us know what part of Earth you're coming from. That helps to build tribes so people can know that there are other people in their city or in their state, so they could possibly reach out to you with questions or with getting information, just so people don't feel so isolated and so alone. Yes. Also, if you have your nips and your sips, I'm sipping on some kombucha, and it is not terribly cold, and I'm freezing. I mean, I'm hot, and I apologize if it's loud. I have this little portable fan. I don't have any air in my little mom cave, and I'm sweltering. Also, when you come in, if you want to share a win, you know how we do. I was doing this long before I read Atomic Habits. If you have a win, however atomic it is, let us know so we can celebrate your win and give you the recognition that you richly deserve. Hassan! Let me pull my mic up. Hassan! Hey, brother, it's good to see you. Thank you for always dropping by and showing support. I really appreciate that. Yes, Boston. That's probably the wrong accent, but Boston's in the house. Okay, guys, we're going to jump right into this because heat wave, heat stroke. I haven't lived in Texas in a long time, and so my body is kind of remembering all the heat I lived through, but the other part of my body is like, girl, you an LA girl. We don't do anything over 75. All right, so listen. We are on the final chapter, and shout out to you. Give yourself a pat on the back if you've been here from the very beginning, okay? Or if you came in late, you started. Give yourself a pat on the back, because let me tell you, I've already made changes with Atomic Habits. As a matter of fact, one of my sons was at on a recruiting tour for football, and I was talking to one of the dads, and I was giving him some Atomic Habit advice that he took. He was saying things, and I was seeing each law and all the ones he was violating. I didn't tell him that, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a part of my life. I could see it. I've already started making changes in the homeschool, and that's going to be something I'm going to reveal in the future, probably on another platform. But let me tell you, this will change your life. Even if you do 50% of this, that 50% will yield you something. Okay, so let's get going. All right, so advanced tactics: how to go from being merely good to truly great. Now, I can just simply sum this up by just saying the main thing that James, the author, wants you to know is that it doesn't matter if you are blessed with great genes or talent, any of that. You have, let me just be real. Can I be real, guys? Okay, listen. Basically, he's saying, don't swim in the pond if you ain't got the equipment to be swimming in that pond. Basically, I grew up in the South. I'm gonna get back to James, but let me just make it real to you guys because he gives sports examples and things like that. I'm gonna give you a woman example. I grew up in the South, and growing up in the South, I was exposed to organizations and women, Jack and Jill, Debutante, all of these organizations whose pageants, whose sole purpose was to groom young ladies to go off to college to get their Mrs. degree, meaning to go off to college to find a husband, right? So everything was really, really competitive, mainly with yourself. You had to have atomic habits. Like you had to make sure your body looked a certain way, your teeth, your hair, your grooming, your speech. And these were things you had to practice every day. Why? Because despite your genes, maybe you were born short and stocky, and the ideal woman was tall and lean, right? But there was no way you were going to be taller, and no way that your thick bone body was going to be thin and slender and all, like really, like bone structure, like a ballerina or something like that. That wasn't going to be your physique. What the elders would tell you, or the women back then would tell the women who weren't blessed facially or body wise, they had to play their lane. Okay. They weren't blessed with these genes that would make things easier for them in life to find a husband. And so, what those girls had to do, they had to be phenomenal in another lane, a smaller, more niche, nuanced lane, whether that's being a great healer, a phenomenal cook, a supreme dancer, all of these other things that would appeal to men, and the pretty girls wouldn't do because they didn't have to, because they just worked off their looks, which would fade. But you having all these other intangible qualities, which Pat Riley, and he makes reference to this in the book, which Pat Riley calls unsung hero things, all these other things that you put all this effort into, would really get you to that man, that prize in the end, and it would hold you in that marriage longer, because those intangibles actually, that was the real meat, the real glue that would snare the man, versus the beautiful girls, because when their beauty faded, they had nothing else to offer. The men were bored, and there you go. So basically, I just summed up what James was saying. One of the tactics is, if you're not blessed with, the height to play basketball or volleyball, or you love science, but you can't figure your way, you can barely do negative fractions. Oh, I'm taking a way back. But you have it, but you have that desire, but that the components you need are not there. You need to find another avenue. So this is what he talked about, and James gave stellar examples. Now, if any of you guys have any comments, any questions, please put them in the chat, because I want to address that, because I need for you guys to get this, because I find that just in life, yes, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Yes, Hassan, that is a phenomenal book. To me, I think the last chapter, which is not a law, there are 4 laws, and then the advanced tactics. I think the advanced tactics should be a main tactic, because a lot of times we count ourselves out the game because we think, oh, I'm not tall enough, I'm not fast enough, I don't have enough money, I speak with a lisp, so I can't be a debater. We put these restraints on ourselves, and we take ourselves out the game. But when you have these obstacles, what you really have to do is find another lane, but in the same game. Now, let me tell you what he tells you. Okay, let me go. Did I lose my spot? Okay, so he talks about the secret to maximizing your odds of success is to choose the right field of competition. What did I tell you about the ladies, right? Now, here's something funny. When I was in college, I dated a football player. He was one of popular football players on the team, and I wasn't in the scene on campus. I kind of stayed to myself. I was into sports, and I wasn't in the lane of being like a groupie, or like at our school, they had an organization that on the low were like groupies, kind of supported by the booster club, that would, like, when the recruits would come in, they would take them out, and then the players that were there, if a player was struggling academically, basically they were spies with smiles, okay? And they would take those little bones, those little intels, things that they saw, carry it back to the coach or assistant coaches, and or other people associated with the team. But the girls who wanted athletes, they were all in the same lane. They were all beautiful, all pretty smart, because they were at a very competitive college, and they all, had great bodies. They were all equal. There was nothing that set them apart. All good looking, great women, but nothing set them apart. That was too much competition with no standout. Everybody looked the same hair, same skin, same body physique, same kind of clothes. Then you had another subset of girls who were athletes, and they had kind of not an upper hand, but they were in a different lane. The lane was, we're just like you athletes, except we're just females. We get to see each other often because we compete together, especially if you were on track. And we don't look like a typical pretty girl, right? Or a pageant girl. So they had their lane that they would stay in, and because they were usually just friends with these athletes, because they had that kindred spirit of being a student athlete, they had more genuine access to the guys, and some of them had the most meaningful relationships. Now, listen, some of these girls, volleyball, track, basketball girls, they look like some of the guys, But, some of them were okay looking. But, if they had those other soft skills, boom, they were in. So what am I saying? If that was your goal, to snag an athlete, you don't want to be in the lane going to the clubs, the parties, the sororities and fraternity get-togethers and stuff, because everybody's doing that and everybody looks the same. And so you don't stand out. But if you're over here seeing them after practice or before practice or on the way to the cafeteria, because if you're seeing them in a different venue that's not set up to meet and greet and do all that kind of stuff, if you're seeing them in a different kind of venue, a different kind of setting, you have that advantage because they're going to see you differently and not put you in that group of these certain kinds of girls. So what James is saying is, you got to choose the right field of competition. Those track looking girls, they had amazing bodies, by the way, but a little manly, a little rough, a little tomboyish. Those girls were not trying to put on some they were not trying to be the girls who won pageants and who were in videos, the Two Live Crew back then, the girls who were like video in the beginning of video vixen history. They were not trying to be those girls. That was not their lane. They stayed in their lane and they got what they wanted. Okay, so that's one thing that he's saying is, you got to choose the right field of competition. Now he goes on to say, he gives this great example of Michael Phelps, the Olympic medalist in swimming. And then what's the other guy's name? He was Haitham El Garouge. He was a gold medalist in track. Now, they had two different body types. Michael Phelps was very, very tall and lean, and Hikam, what's his name? Hi, Cam. Sorry, brother, if I'm saying your name wrong. He was short and kind of stocky. Now, both are Olympic, winners. They got the work ethic, they got the habits. But Michael, if he tried to compete in track, would lose terribly because his physique was not conducive to going far in track. He would just the long lankiness, he would always lose. And then Hakan, with his short, stocky stuff, he would lose terribly in swimming because his body just being short and stocky and muscular and all that, he wouldn't be at an Olympic level. Both of those men stayed in their lane. They found fields of competition that aligned with their physique, right? So only rarely do you have someone who can break out of that, like a Spud Webb. On my old head, Spud Webb was like, I think 5'4" child or 5'5", and the average height in the NBA, I think, is like 6'5" or 6'6". But he played and he did well for a number of years. But that's a rarity. That was an exception to the rule. He was very, very short, but he played bigger than his body, right? But that's rare. Somebody might have said, hey, maybe you want to be a running back in football or do track or something like that. But he played in the field, and against all odds, he became successful. But that's very rare. So one thing James is saying is look at the habit look at your identity, and then figure out, am I in the right field of this identity? Now, remember, the identity is, and this is another tactic. This is, I think, his second tactic of how you flesh out your identity. When you're doing that, you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success and not saying, okay, I want to be a more patient and fun. I'm the type of person that's very patient and fun to be. I'm the type of person who is very patient and fun with my children, because you want to be a better homeschooler, right? So if you're saying all that, being patient, being more fun, but you got a short fuse. You've always had a short fuse, and fun, you don't know the first thing about fun. You just been a prude. You might want to adjust that field that you're going in so you can be successful at that. That's probably not the best example. So let me move on. All right. So James says, embracing the strategy of choosing the right field of competition requires the acceptance of the simple truth that people are born with different abilities. Again, if you're an introvert, but you want to be a more fun, outgoing homeschooling parent, or a person who is more outgoing and gregarious, you got to really think deep down inside, okay, is that really who I am? It doesn't mean you can't try that, but are you setting yourself up for disappointment? Because you might have to nuance that identity. Instead of saying gregarious and outgoing and you're an introvert and you barely go outside the house, you might have to restructure that identity to where your new identity, you're not putting all the eggs into something that is going to be supremely hard for you to do physically, because physically, just your makeup, you are like this. You've always, have been like this. So not saying you can't do it. He's saying this is a way to success. So try to find something in that's similar to what you want to do and look for another way. Okay. So he says, in short, genes do not determine your destiny. They determine your areas of opportunity. Exactly. So when and I'll go back to, let me try a different example. Let me give you one of his examples. Okay. So he says, how do you figure out areas of opportunity? Okay. How do I find situations where the odds are in my favor? Say if you're on your journey for your habits. Okay. So he says the first place you look at is your personality. See what I said about being an introvert? You got to look at your personality, because you have to have these truths about yourself. He gives this example of, you take a mirror, and this is the mirror. And a lot of us, why we're failures, is because we are right here in front of the mirror. And when we're this close, we see every single imperfection. Oh, look at this. Look at this pimple. Look at this zit. Oh, I got a blackhead. Oh, I got freckles. Oh, my nose hair. I got some grays in my nose hairs. But you can't see the overall picture of, hey, that exfoliation is kind of really working, or I do have a nice bone structure, or these glasses frame my face nicely, because you're like this. The opposite is when you're like this, you're nitpicky and you're too wrapped up in the details and you're not getting the big picture. When you pull back too far, you're not noticing anything. You don't see those pimples signaling that you might have to change up your skincare routine or lay off on the chocolate, because you're looking at yourself from way over here in the mirror. Now you see the overall picture. Okay, I'm looking okay. But you don't see that cyst right here, or those skin tags, right? Because you way over here. So he's saying, as an advanced tactic, and this will take time, you got to be able to maneuver the mirror just right so you can see the little small imperfections, and then keep the overall picture, the big picture in mind, so you can have that balance, right? It's all about balance. Okay. So he goes on to say, and this part, he talks about the big five, the ways to break down, trying to figure out your personality. And he goes on to talk about neuroticism, agreeableness, extroversion, conscientiousness. I kind of skipped over that because for all the information, you can go do a Myers-Briggs and get your personality test, and it would be more involved and in depth. This is just kind of just really general. These five, the big five, when you're trying to figure out how your personality will influence your habits. So I kind of, I read it, but I'm like, okay, that I don't think that's going to do much for me. Okay. So now this is what I did like. Okay. How to find a game where the odds are in your favor. Okay. So he talks about, you know what? I didn't really care for this section either. What do you guys think? How did you feel about this part in the chapter? I wasn't really feeling it. James's stuff is on point, but this part here in the chapter, page 222, I was, he talks about trial and error, and you want to try things out to see if they fit, based on your personality when you're trying to figure out your identity and your habits. But life is short. You ain't got all day to be trying on, different, habits or different identities. You don't have time to be doing all this. He compared it to dating. You don't want to spend, like 5 years dating, just don't work. You want to connect with something. You don't want to keep trying over and over and over again. Okay. Oh, hey, Zoe. See, thank you so much for doing this book club, Nikki. I've needed another seasoned homeschooling stay-at-home mom to help me remember that I'm still yes, you are still a living person outside of my motherly duties. Thank you for saying that, Zoe, because we do forget that. And we are women, and we are just humans. We have other thoughts and dreams and expectations that aren't tied to children or marriage or partners or the house, that we deserve to access and revel in. So true. I have only ever seen all of my imperfections. Yes. And as women, that's one of our problems. We're so like this all the time, right? So I didn't feel like he gave enough example and direction for how to adjust that mirror. Now, what he does say, to be able to keep the mirror homeostasis, balance, to keep the mirror like this, he talks about the trial and error, right? When you're like, okay, too much, too close, too far, you're doing the trial and error where you're trying on different things. Okay, let me see. Say you want to work on being some type of homeschooling person, right? Whatever it is. Or you want to be better at homesteading in some type of way, or financially, whatever it is. The trial and error is trying something and trying to figure out how long to try it on to see if it's working, and then to gauge, is this working? And then figure out, oh, it's not working, let me go on to the next thing. I don't feel he gave for me enough direction to know when to cut it off and go, you know what, I'm gonna try something else, because I don't think this is really working. Because it's like with homeschooling, guys, when you're looking at curriculum, y'all know from my past videos, I give curriculum 6 weeks, okay? Because that gives me enough time to get past the honeymoon period where I'm like in love with this curriculum, and then that gives me time to where if my child is not really feeling the curriculum, we can still persevere, and I can see, is it the curriculum? Is it something else that's bothering my child? Or is it something minor with the curriculum that we can fix? Or is it just overall, this curriculum doesn't align with my child's learning style? So I feel for me, 6 weeks is enough time for me to make that assessment and then go, make a decision whether to keep it or ditch it. Okay. But for us, how do we figure that out? And I don't feel he gave, at least for me, enough direction. He talks about explore and then the exploit trade-off. He does use a lot of vocabulary. I'm like, I don't need a lot of this vocabulary. Okay. So I skipped, the next couple of pages. I read it, but I didn't feel that I could take anything from that. Okay. And then the one thing that I did like, so much so that I had to bend the paper in half, is that, and this is actually a really good example. And this is what I think would be key for you guys. Okay. Now he gives this example of Scott Adams, who's a cartoonist who did Dilbert. So you knew mommies and dads might not know, but Dilbert was the guy that had that oddly shaped head with a little bit of hair, and he was always in the office, white shirt with a tie. I think he wore glasses. Dilbert, right? Okay. Now Scott Adams, he said everyone has at least a few areas in which they could be in the top 25% with some effort. In my case, I can draw better than most people, but I'm hardly an artist. And I'm not any funnier than the average stand-up comedian who never makes it big. But I'm funnier than most people. The magic is that few people can draw well and write jokes. Listen, I like this. It's the combination of the two that makes what I do so rare. And when you add in my business background, suddenly I had a topic that few cartoonists could hope to understand without living it. Okay, this to me is by far the biggest gem he drops in advanced tactics. Okay, he says, James, when you can't win by being better, you can win by being different. How do you do that? You can combine skills, reduce the level of competition, rewrite the rules. A good player works hard to win the game everyone else is playing. A great player creates a new game that favors their strengths and avoids their weaknesses. And that is exactly what I told my son today at his recruiting thing for football. Okay. You got fierce competition. Everyone's doing the same thing. They're all on social media putting up all the same stuff. I said, how do you set yourself apart? The things that you think are weaknesses, how do you turn that into your strength? How do you minimize that weakness and then really shore up your strength? Okay. And it made a difference with my son. It was just a reminder. Okay. Just a reminder. So for you, when you're trying to figure out, I want to be a better homeschooler. Okay. But that's not a good identity. And I'm going to tell you that in a minute because I made that mistake. But say you want to be a more outgoing homeschooler, but you're introverted, right? So now this is your personality, which is something you don't just change overnight, right? Usually you just can't change it. So it's genetics. So you're stuck with that. Now you have to change that game. Okay, well, the game of just going to all these activities and classes, okay, I got to figure something else out because that's not my lane. So now you're looking at, okay, depending on the age of your child, what places or opportunities are there where I can just drop my kid off? Or let me find a mom that I can befriend and I can drop my kid off at that mom's house and, she can take the kids and talk to the parents, hang out and smooze, and maybe I can just pick up the kids. I ain't got to talk to nobody. Just sit in the car. Come on, kids, let's go, and then take them home. Now you start thinking, because this is not your lane. You start thinking without having to try on a whole bunch of different things that are going to fail. You can start thinking, okay, let me find 3 ways where I can still be outgoing, but not too outgoing, but no, just enough, just a 1%. That 1% is actually calling a mom and saying, hey, you want to do this? Or going to an activity, showing up, but not talking to anybody there. But for you, just being there around other people is a 1% improvement for you, because now you're out the house. Okay. Look, when I go to a lot of places, I don't talk to people. Number one, I don't want to be bothered. Number two, I usually have my laptop or a book with me. Right. So people might think I'm introverted until I open my mouth, and then they can't shut me up. But listen, if you're introverted, that choosing your different lane is you go here and you just sit here. Okay. Now you're just making your presence known. The next time you can, but you know what? When you're an introvert, you got to people watch, right? Find your mark. Find the mom that seems maybe the most friendly or the most quiet one that might be an introvert like you. Just people watch. And then the next time, just make eye contact with a smile. Okay. And then next week, remember, it's 1% improvement each time. And then next time, look at her, make eye contact, smile, give her a wave. Then the next time after, you know what I'm saying? It's just incremental. Next thing you know, you in a full-fledged conversation, texting and no, I'm kidding. But it's little, but now you're in your lane. You're not over here with the big group, hackling, bumping gums, talking. And you know how women get when they're all together. You're in your lane, still making communication, still letting your kids do what they need to do, but you're doing it by your rules, okay? You just have to sit down and just think, how can I skin this cat a different way? Okay. And that's what having a group or belonging to a group where you can talk to other people and get feedback, people who've been in your own situation, and they can give you some ideas. Okay. Let me catch up on some of these comments. Hey, what's up, Kamika? Zoe says, I'm learning to change my point of view so I can see things more accurately rather than from an emotional, undirectional point. Y'all, don't that sound like a win? Zoe, you got a win. You didn't even know it. I like that word, undirectional. You just floating around in the raft with no oar. Okay? Trial and error has been my only means of doing this. Okay, yes, getting out there and trying on what works, and then if it don't work, put it in the trash and then move on. Okay. Okay. I think I understand what you're saying. So trial and error helps you to see things more accurately, so you can get away from the emotional, undirectional point. I think I'm understanding you correctly. So yeah, so you want to do the trial and error, and then, but it's on you to kind of figure out, is this a good fit? And then you got to move on. But you know what I feel like? And hold on. I feel some of these things, James, some of the things are executive functioning skills. How you got to get in touch with yourself. Okay. And to be able to have that self-awareness, and then well, you know what, he does talk about it. This is when I knew that he read a lot of special needs books, because okay, the first tactic he gives is, play in your field of competition. The next one is what's the next one about combining skills, or create a new game, in your lane, play by your rules. That's his second tactic, right? Okay. He says, let me just finish this second tactic. He says, in college, he designed his own major, which is biomechanics, which is a combination of physics, chemistry, biology, and anatomy. So he said he wasn't smart enough to stand out among the top physics or biology majors. So he created his own game, his own major, and it suited him because he liked the courses that he was taking. Remember, he chose those specific courses, and studying felt less of a chore. Now, remember, that goes back to our rules: make it easy and make it attractive. You're doing what you like. Well, that's not really attractive. It was just making it easy for him, right? Okay. It was also easier to avoid the trap of comparing myself to everyone else because you are doing something different. So you can't sit up here and compare yourself to Jane and Lisa because they doing something way over here in that lane. You're doing something way over here that's totally different, and there's no apples and oranges comparison. So that kind of helps to insulate you from that trap of comparison. Okay. So James says specialization is a powerful way to overcome the accident of bad genetics. Okay. So the more you master a specific skill, the harder it becomes for others to compete with you. Okay. And then he gives a really interesting comparison that bodybuilders are stronger than the average arm wrestler, but a massive bodybuilder may lose at arm wrestling to a smaller man because that's all he specializes in, is just that one thing, arm wrestling. Even though you would have, even though the bodybuilder would have the advantage overall because of just, his weight and all of that stuff. But he's not a specialist, the bodybuilder. The arm wrestler is, right? So he has the advantage. So specializing in, that's like, okay. When I was in college, I had a professor. He was a marketing professor. And I was doing poorly in that class because I never showed up. It was really okay. For a second, I thought there was a tremor. Anyway, I did well in the class in the end. But the professor, he's a marketing professor. He was a whiz, just a genius. And the time that I was there, I was the co-sports director at our university. And everybody that wanted to go into sports journalism, because back then, Fox Sports had just gotten this big lucrative contract to show all of these sports, especially collegiate sports. So it was really big, really huge. They had Pam Oliver. I wanted to be Pam Oliver. And so a lot of women were trying to get into sports journalism. Well, more women were trying to get into sports journalism. But I also liked politics, and I wanted to be an international correspondent. And so I was trying to figure out what, I could do. I was torn. I love sports, but I love politics. And so he was like, well, just do both. I'm like, well, how do I do both? One, I'll be out of the country, and in the other one, I'll be at a different arena or stadium every week. And he was like, you'll figure it out. You will just create something and just merge it. He says, you do know they do sports and politics all the time. Maybe you could just be a correspondent. And almost like what's the guy? On ESPN, Max, not Max. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. But he used to be in sports, and then he went into politics, and then he might be back into Tolbert, not Tolbert. Do I have any sports heads in here? This is driving me crazy. Anyway, he did what I was thinking of doing, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. And what my professor was saying was spot on. He was saying do both, but he just didn't know how to tell me how to do both because he didn't know. But sometimes when you're combining, you're not combining everything at the same time. You might take a little bit of one thing and a lot of the other thing to combine it, so it's not even 50-50, right? So that was kind of what I think he was pushing me to do, because no one else was. Oh, what is his name? So now, anyway, what you would have now of combining would be your sports magazine shows like on HBO or Showtime, like James Brown. He's into politics. Well, he's into sports, not politics, but he talks about sports outside of just the gridiron, all right, or the basketball court. He'll bring in other topics. So it would be something like that. And James Brown, he does that. Bob Costas, he does that. So you have very few people who really do what they do, but you have a majority of the people who are just your regular sports journalists, just reporting on stuff, or they do the morning shows or the post-game shows, but you have very few that combine sports with something else. Okay, so anyway, long story short, just try to take something and that you like, jot down all the things that you like or that you're good at, and see. Y'all, look, it is cross curriculum planning in the Atomic Habits world. Yes, it is. No, you guys know what cross curriculum learning is. It's where you take a subject, one or two subjects, and you teach it together. So you don't just do history and then, okay, we're done with history, let's go to English. Okay, we're done with English or writing, let's go to math. You would take all three and say, okay, we're going to study the Great Depression, history. Let's see. Let's talk about the Great Depression, the 1920s. Oh, what happened during the 1920s? Okay, the Roaring 20s. Well, wait. Well, let's stick with the Great Depression. So let's talk about the 1920s. So you got history, the 1920s, and then you got the writing part or the literature part. Okay, let's focus on the 1920s. Okay, who were the great writers of that time? You got the Great Gatsby, Of Mice and Men. So you got all this literature. So you can have your child read these books and then do writing prompts based on that literature from that time period. So they're getting their writing in and they're getting their history in, right? And if you can throw in grammar around that time, so you can take a whole passage from a page, because that's great writing, and you can analyze the grammar in that. If more advanced grammar, you can take science. What was going on in science during that time? Airplanes were getting ready to, were kind of taking off. You can, maybe do, a quick little unit study, a 1 or 2 week unit study on the evolution of the airplane. But all that to say, you bring in more than one subject and teach it all together. Marva Collins was the queen of cross-curricular study. Remember, if you watched the movie, when I think they were studying The Merchant of Venice. Now, she had 3 kids, 3 different ages. The oldest one, I think, was writing about the economics of the exchange that the merchants had to go through. The middle one, I think he had like a little writing prompt or something. And then the baby was just doing copy work, just some little basic stuff, but it was still language arts. So she had math, or she might have had science, but she had 3 different subjects going on the board. That's cross-curricular teaching. So for you, when you're trying to figure out your identity and your habits, look at what you have, what you can do, what you like, start there, and see how you can combine them like cross-curriculum, right? And then go from there. So I thought that was pretty key. Okay, so basically, the summary is pick the right habits and progress is easy. Pick the wrong habits and life is a struggle. Okay, I didn't read that part because that was the part I skipped. The secret to maximizing your odds of success is to choose the right field of competition. Genes can't be changed, but you can put yourself in a favorable circumstance. Let me just read what it says. Genes cannot be easily changed, which means they provide a powerful advantage in favorable circumstances and a serious disadvantage in unfavorable circumstances. Remember the Michael Phelps and the long distance runner, okay? Habits are easier when they align with your natural abilities. Choose the habits that best suit you. So if you're an introvert, you choose wisely. If you're a hothead, choose wisely. If you are OCD, choose your stuff wisely, okay? Play the game that favors your strengths. If you can't find a game that favors you, create some or create one. Okay, and then finally, genes don't eliminate the need for hard work. They clarify it. They tell us what to work hard on. Does anyone have any questions or comments so far? Then we're going to go on to the next one, and then that's it. He's got more stuff, but I can break that down pretty quickly. Oh, we're at 45 minutes. Y'all know I'm so long-winded. Zoe says the difficult part is not giving up when things aren't looking up. Oh, he's got a part in that. Okay, let's get to that. How to stay motivated in life and work. Right on time, Zoe. Right on time. All right, let's see. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Now, he gives us a long example of this comedian. I'm not going to give his name away just yet. Who started working at Disneyland. Okay, back in like the early stages of Disneyland. What he says is this for the motivation. The human brain, I wish I could just show it to you so you can read it. The human brain, right here, loves a challenge, but only if it is within an optimal zone of difficulty. Okay. If you love tennis and you try to play a serious match against a 4-year-old, you will quickly become bored. It's too easy. You'll win every point. In contrast, if you play a professional tennis player like Roger Federer or Serena Williams, you will quickly lose motivation because the match is too difficult. Okay. Now consider playing tennis against someone who is your equal. Okay. So as the game progresses, you win points and you lose some. Sometimes you have a good chance of winning, other times not. Because this is a challenge of just manageable difficulty, and it is a prime example of the Goldilocks rule. So what does he mean? So he means when you're choosing your habit, what you want to do, if it's really, really, really easy and you're knocking things out, you're going to get bored with it. You're not going to stick with it. Okay. If it's way too hard, remember the third rule, the third law is make it easy, right? If it's too hard, you're going to give up. Okay. So finding that sweet spot where you have just enough of a challenge to keep you going, but it's just slightly out of reach. So you keep reaching, so you keep improving. So you feel like you can achieve it, but it's just a little bit of an obstacle to keep. It's like with men, y'all. You know, the men that like to chase women. As soon as if you're easy to catch, they get bored really easy. But listen, y'all, you know I love my books. Okay, here it is. James Clear had me pulling out 5 or 6 books. He really did. I was like, oh my gosh, he has taken from everybody. James Clear read this book, The Art of Seduction. I've had this book for over 20 years almost. Robert Greene also wrote the 48 Laws of Power. Y'all should get that. Now listen. So he was talking about the difference between the chase and the submission, right? I found it in here. So you find that sweet spot where it's a little bit of a challenge, but you feel like I can get her. I can get her. And that keeps you going. That keeps you motivated, right? Just when you think you're about to get it, you might get a little smidgen of it, a little taste, and then it's gone and you got to get it again. So it keeps you motivated because you feel like you can achieve it, you can conquer it, you can get it. Then you get it. You're like, oh, I like this. You want to keep going. And then you got to put in some more work and effort for the next level, for the next level, for the 1%, for the next 1%, for the next 1%. So when you keep it like that on a loop, you keep your motivation. So you're not always bored with something or exasperated because something's too hard. You kind of find that Goldilocks zone. But guys, listen, let me tell you, that's going to be trial and error. Because you're going to have to figure out, this is why I went back to this. This is not a special needs book. This is everybody's needs book. You gotta figure out, you have to learn for yourself, what is your zone of the edge of where you're about to give up, and then right when you need a moonwalk back. You had to figure out what that edge is for you. How far can you be pushed before you just give up? So honestly, I think this book is also really learning about yourself and figuring out, okay, I know I can only go this far. Okay. And when you start knowing those boundaries, you can generalize those boundaries in other areas of life, not just homeschool, homesteading, health, or finances or relationships, any of that. You can do it for anything. Okay. Let's continue. Okay. So the Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. Guys, let me tell you, and I'm such a giving YouTuber. Any YouTubers who are watching this and you want to steal this idea, I say go ahead, because this is only going to help the child that is in front of you or the person that you're teaching. Okay, I'm going to give you some game. This is a number one homeschooling tactic to use, okay? Especially if you have children who are struggling with something, or if you have children who excel very well in something. I've actually, all my kids are on the Goldilocks. Oldest one, he taught himself how to read. I just showed up. He was already reading. Like, Mom, you late. He reading the book, looking at his fingers, turning the pages. Meanwhile, I'm trying to grab little crayons and so little cheese puff crunchies and little goldfish cracker. He already reading. Mom, okay, sit down, Mom. Put the goldfish over there. Middle child, all over the place. Just all. That child required the most work. Now he's my Goldilocks child. I'm like, oh my God, thank you, my Lord. He kept me on my knees. Now he's got me in my head, my hands up to the sky. My youngest child, oh my God, the attitude and I've had it all. I've had every kind of struggle, okay? Giftedness, learning issues, disabilities, and funky attitudes. I've had them all, and there are more. So finding the Goldilocks, finding that sweet spot is key, okay? I wish he would just do a book on the Goldilocks rule in parenting, homeschooling, business, everything. Okay. Oh, I got lipstick all over my book. That's all right. That's all right. Let's keep moving. Okay. So, okay, he talks about Steve Martin. I think he's Steve Martin. He talks about comedians where they need just enough victories to keep them motivated and just enough mistakes to keep them working hard. So when they're doing new material, they're trying out new material, they go to these small clubs, excuse me. And so, they're trying out, their jokes and everything. So when they're seeing something's killing, okay, that's good. They keep going, and then they say some stuff and people are just looking at them like, okay, fail, mistake. Okay. And then, but because they had that victory, okay, I can keep going. I can keep going. But I had that mistake. Okay, now let me go back and reflect on that and make adjustments, which brings us to our next advanced tactic, which is reflection and review. Okay. Oh, I skipped this part. This is actually quite key. This is gonna be a long video. Darn it. Okay. We were talking about the Goldilocks zone. How do you get into it? Okay. And how do you know when you're not in it and all that stuff? James says, improvement requires a delicate balance. You need to regularly search for challenges that push you to your edge while continuing to make enough progress to stay motivated. So, guys, that's going to be your real trial and error, okay? And that's going to be your ugly, messy, snot-filled moment, that phase, okay? Give yourself enough grace and time and sit in that and marinate in that before you go on. That's what I'm going to do, because I really need to know how, because you think you can go this far, but you're thinking of that in an ideal environment. You're not thinking you can go this far and your sister calling you because, her man ran off with her money again, or your friends calling you because, she's having problems at work. A lot of times you're in environments that are kind of hostile or just not very positive. So you got to think of that challenge, how far you can go when you got issues and weights on your shoulder. So that's why we got to sit in that little phase, that delicate balance, and see, how can I balance this in an ideal situation where there's everything's calm in my life, and then how do I balance this when my kids have 50 million activities. No one eats dinner together. My child's school is an hour away. I have to drive to pick them up. And then I work way over here. People got real issues. So give yourself time to play around with, how much can I really shoulder? I say go for the lowest hanging fruit and the least common denominator, and then work your way up from that, because it's always going to be something. Remember, you don't start in ideal circumstances. You start right now when it's messy. So I say start and to set that bar low so you can work your way up. But back to James. Okay, so boredom is perhaps the greatest villain on the quest for self-improvement. Okay, so he goes on to say, and this goes to Zoe, who not Zoe, who was that said, how do you stay motivated? It might have been Zoe or Kimiko. Hey, Love Katesh. Hey, hun. Good to see you. Okay. He says, what's the difference between the best athletes and everyone else? Oh, actually, this is a really good one. What do the really successful people do that most don't? I don't even have to look at this book. This elite coach said, the best athletes are the ones that are used to the boredom and monotony of everyday things. What does he say exactly? At some point, it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day, doing the same lifts over and over and over again. So this is, a highly regarded coach that he noticed. This was Kobe. These are all your great athletes. They did the most. One thing I learned when I was kind of in the sports world, I was around a lot of athletes. The ones that their bodies were supreme and their body was a temple, they ate the same thing every day: chicken breast, broccoli, brown rice, egg whites, and turkey. I mean, it was the same thing for breakfast, the same thing for lunch, and then dinner, maybe just a salad or something like that. But it was the same thing every day for years. Boring. Meanwhile, you got other athletes, they're going to PF Chain, they going to, Nobu, they going all everywhere but to the refrigerator. And meanwhile, they wonder why they're getting cut from the from the team, or they're not getting that big contract. The greatness is boring. Kobe Bryant going to practice while everybody else is going off to the clubs to play. Kobe Bryant, the greatest, one of the greatest liquor players. They do great with monotony. Okay, they don't need bells and whistles. Okay, the greatest threat to success is not failure but boredom. We get bored with habits because they stop delighting us. So that goes to one of you guys who said, how do I stay motivated? Okay, so what's the source of the unmotivation? Is it because you're bored? Okay, well, why are you bored? Is it too easy? Is it I'm not really seeing any progress? So we have to define, where is that boredness coming from? Then, as our habits become ordinary, then you're doing your habits right, we start derailing our progress to seek novelty. Okay. And that's when people jump up and start trying something else. Oh, let me try to change this up. Or let me try to add this in. And then what they're doing is nothing like where they started from, because they got bored. They were not comfortable doing the boring things day in and day out that will give them that compound interest, that will give them those 1% results, the 1% changes that will give them those remarkable results, right? Because remember, at the beginning of the book, we talked about the 32 degree, the temperature, and it takes all of those 1%, the 1 degree changes before you start to see the water boiling. That's that I don't have a pen. This is the 32%. This is the 32 degree, right? Where the water starts to boil. You're right here no, you're way down here. My finger's down by the floor. And you're just making 1% gains, right? You don't see nothing. It's like going to the gym. You've been going to the gym for 2 weeks. You still ain't got no six-pack. You're not going to get a six-pack. 1%, 1%. Now it's 6 weeks. See, now you're getting close to the 32 degree temperature where the water starts to boil. Or no, it's not boil, freeze. Wait, is it water and then it freezes? Y'all know what I'm trying to say. You get to the point where you're about to see that change. But between down there and here, where that water either goes from liquid to solid, from water to ice, or ice to water, or water to boiling, like the steam, before you get here, you're bored because you're not seeing anything. Either it's too easy, it's too hard, or you're bored. One of those culprits is going to happen between when you first start and before you see that first change right here. So what do you do during this stage here to keep you motivated until you see that first change, that first little half of a six-pack, or that bank account go from red to finally 50 cents in the green, or, your child finally got that cursive G, whatever it is. It just takes that time before you start to see all that work has just paid off for that one thing. Okay. So James says you need to create a variable reward. This is what they do in the gambling casinos. Gambling casinos? In the casinos. Okay. You get just enough time to win in the slot machine, and you get different amounts to keep you going back because you just think, oh, it's coming, right? And then eventually it does come, but it comes at different, it's not always the same amount of money each time, right? So with the variable rewards, variable rewards lead to the greatest spike of dopamine, enhances memory recall, and accelerates habit formation. I don't know why I didn't underline that because that's pretty key. Okay. Because basically, it's like when you've been married 500 years. This is what a grandma told me, my girlfriend's grandmother. They've been married like 47 years back then. I think it's 60 years now. She would just leave her husband for a week or something like that. Just do things to just like spice it up, change the variables in the marriage. Yeah, she would just go. She was like, I'm going off with my girlfriends. We're going to Wyoming. And peace, she was gone. Come back. It's a whole nother marriage when she comes back. She wasn't going out to be, she was old. Wasn't going out to be, running the streets. She was like in her 50s or 60s or whatever. But what do they say? Variety is the spice of life. Well, variety is the spice of motivation to keep it going. That's all James is saying in these 5-6 pages. He says, variable rewards won't create a craving. That is, you can't take a reward people are uninterested in, give it to them at a variable interval, and hope it will change their mind. But they are a powerful way to amplify the cravings we already experience because they reduce boredom. So when you're feeling bored, you got to figure out ways. And he doesn't give you a lot of examples. He does have a data bank of some things, but I didn't see one for variable rewards. So basically, find a couple of rewards to keep off on the sidelines. And when you hit that first bout of boredom, pull out that reward. Change it up. Don't make it the same thing because you'll get bored with those rewards, right? So just variable. So he's saying a lot of stuff. Basically, is change it up. That's like I tell you, when you're homeschooling multiple ages, multiple grades without losing your mind, you have your survival box where you have things in it that are high interest for your children. to keep them from being bored and from annoying you when you're trying to teach. And you rotate that. You rotate those rewards. It's an old video. I need to update it. I'm doing Atomic Habits without even knowing about James, because I know that's human nature. We don't always want the same kind of reward. Okay. We want something different, and that's how it is, you know. All right. So that was it for that chapter. He just says professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. Remember, boredom, the great ones, they work through it. They don't try to, reinvent the wheel and go off and try something totally new and different. Even if life gets in the way, they just put their nose down and keep on trucking. Professionals know what is important to them and they work toward it with purpose. Amateurs get pulled off course by the urgencies of life. Now, I had to underline that because that's all of us, right? That is all of us. I didn't want to come on tonight. I am so hot. I'm so dehydrated. I came home from that school, and then I had to turn around and be outside for 2 hours with my child doing something. Then come home. It's been 95 degrees here, and I had to water my plants, all my plants. It took like 30, 40 minutes to water them. I'm still drenched and soaked from being outside all day. And then when I'm done there, my husband had to work, so I had to make the kids some dinner so I can get ready to come on for you guys, right? So all these urgencies of life, but I'm here. There were some slides and some handouts I wanted to show you, but I said I just have to show up. It's not messy. It's messy, but remember, showing up is 50%. Okay. So basically he says what I just told you. All of the things that want to pull you from your habit goals, whether it's boredom or things happening in life, he says there have been a lot of sets. Okay, he's saying when he's not wanting to do what he wants to do, there have been a lot of sets, like workout sets, that I haven't felt like finishing, but I never regretted doing the workout. There have been a lot of articles I haven't felt like writing, but I've never regretted publishing on schedule. Okay. And there have been a lot of days I felt like relaxing, but I've never regretted showing up, excuse me, guys, and working on something that was important to me. So basically, show the F up, because once you do, you're not going to regret that you did. Remember, we talked about going to the gym for 5 minutes because you are a person who is committed to good health. So going to the gym reinforces that identity you have. So if you show up even for 5 minutes, but it wasn't your best, you told yourself, I showed up, right? And you're not going to regret it because you showed up. So there's no regret in doing it. It's the regret in not doing that. And then you don't do it again. And then you don't do it again. And now you've established a negative habit, right? And then you just spiral down. Okay. So basically, excuse me, he's just saying, show up raggedy, tired, dirty, whatever, just show up. That's the gist of that chapter. I'm not even go over the summary, because that's basically when you get bored, you still show up. And while you're showing up, figure out some ways, different rewards that you can do to, basically bribe yourself to continue to show up. Okay. The downside of creating good habits. Yeah, this one, he talks about mastery. And when you start to master a habit, you start to lose focus of the little things, the little errors that will come. And so those little errors, ERRORS, because I'm country, they will start to add up. And then you don't have any positive net gains from your habit. It diminishes, because when you master something, your attention kind of shifts elsewhere. So he's saying, once you hit mastery, mastery is the process of narrowing. That's why I want y'all to come on here so I don't have to keep talking because I'm losing my voice. But won't stop. Mastery is the process of narrowing your focus to a tiny element of success, repeating it until you have internalized the skill, and then using this new habit as the foundation to advance to the next frontier of your development. So it's like, the monkey swinging from vine to vine. You're on that vine with that habit, and then when you're ready to move on to the next one, you go grab that vine, you on that one, swinging until you get to the end of the jungle or wherever you're trying to go. All right. Now I'm going to end with this. He gives to me the best example, and this is one of the examples I was telling one of the dads today. How to review your habits and make adjustments. Remember, I was just telling you, well, how do you know if you're in the Goldilocks zone? What's your point? How do you, judge yourself? So he talks about the Los Angeles Lakers from 1986. They were a really, really good team, and people had high hopes that they were going to win the championship, but they got bounced out in the Western Conference Final. So one game before the championship. So Pat Riley, he was like, this is not going to fly. So he developed this system called CBE, which is Career Best Effort. Now, the one thing I can say about James, the back of this book, he has like over 20 pages of notes because he documents every example he gives you. He shows you where he gets all that information. It's a treasure trove of information, guys. But he says, this is Pat Riley talking. When players first joined the Lakers, Riley explained, we tracked their basketball statistics all the way back to high school. I call this taking their number. We look for an accurate gauge of what a player can do, then build him into our plan for the team based on the notion that he will maintain and then improve upon his averages. Now, after determining a player's baseline level of performance, Riley added a key step. He asked this is 1986, y'all. He asked each player let me show y'all. He asked each player to improve their output by at least, hold on. Y'all see that? Improve their output by at least, first line, 1%. 1% over the course of the season. Okay, thank you, James Clear, for giving Riley credit, but really he should give Pat Riley, more credit. Riley came up with that 1% increase because let me tell you, at the beginning of this book, when he said 1% increase a day, I was like, well, why did he choose 1%? Why not 0.8%? Why not 1.5% or 2%? He just took what someone else did and was successful. Pat Riley, the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, and ran with it. You see, I put that note down here. I was like, that's where he got it from. All right, James, I see you. Okay, but moving on. If they succeeded, it would be a CBE or career best effort. Okay, so the reason why Riley did this is because remember how we said, well, how do you know you're too close to the mirror or too far away, or what's your zone, the edge of challenge before you give up? How far can you push yourself before you fall apart, right? Well, this is Riley's way of doing it for sports, okay? And he goes in how they do the scoring of it. But he says that sustaining an effort is the most important thing. And to be successful is to learn how to do things right, then do them the same way every time. So, guys, it's all, like you guys pointed out, it's trial and error. So you spend that time just trying to figure out that zone. But you want to go to the reflection part which is where you write down how you're feeling, what was going on, so you can use that data to help figure out, oh, it seems that on Wednesdays my sister's always calling me. Okay, these are little data points that you can cobble together to get a big picture to see what's going on, so you can see where your triggers are, where you're being pushed, where your little zones are, where you can really get a lot of things done. Okay, so when you have that information, then it's easier to plan for those urgencies, those life urgencies, and to plan when things are going well. So reflection, which is what Pat Riley was doing, they were reflecting on the player's performance. Reflection and review enables long-term improvement of all habits because it makes you aware of your mistakes and helps you consider possible paths for improvement. Now, one thing that James does, he reviews a couple times a year. He has what's called, I'm just going to skip toward the end. He has what's called an annual review that he does in December. Okay, so he says James uses two primary modes of reflection and review. He has an annual review that he does in December. He reflects on the previous year, and he tallies his habits for the year by counting up how many articles he published, how many workouts he put in, how many new places he visited, whatever. And then he gives himself questions that he asks. And this can be for another video because it's a lot of stuff, but 6 months later into the year, he'll do an integrity report. Now, I like this. So the integrity report is helps him realize where he's gone wrong with things and motivates him to get back on course. I use it as a time to revisit my core values and consider whether I have been living in accordance with them. Listen, my homeschoolers, where's my hold on. Y'all don't look at me. I be showing you all my business. Listen, some of y'all scoff when I say get you a doggone homeschool vision. Just write something down. Write it down so you have somewhere to start. Why? Because when it comes time to do your integrity report, look, there are two periods in the typical homeschool year where parents, burn out. October and February. Okay. If you keep just a couple of notes, maybe you write down a couple of things for the week, whatever, you can look back and say, oh, okay, I seem to be struggling during this time, or I seem to be struggling with this type of subject, or with this teacher, or with this child. Oh, I noticed I'm struggling with this child only in March. Why is that? Maybe during March is where your child has a lot of competition. Like maybe they do soccer and that's when they have all of their, matches. They're going to like different, higher level competitions, like, championships. So, when your kids toward the end of the season, when they start to, have to make like, preliminaries or their league championships, it's more stress on them, right? So maybe during that time in March, like in basketball, March Madness, maybe during that time, she's, your child is more stressed out because there's more pressure on her. You won't know that unless you just write something down. So that integrity report, which I really like, can show you, okay, well, I said at the beginning of the year, we were going to do A, B, and C. Now, 6 months later, did you do that? If you keep just little notes on what's going on in the house with your kids, with you can start to see patterns. Now you can plug in, holes. You can shore up good things going on and continue to amplify those things. But you have to have something to work with, y'all. You got to have something to work with, okay? On his website, jamesclear.com/integrity, this link here, you can download that link and see what he uses. Okay, you can download that right here. jamesclear.com/integrity, and he asks himself questions and to see how he's doing. Okay, and when you're doing this reflection, you can see every imperfection. Okay, hold on. Okay, so he says reflection can also bring a sense of perspective. Okay, daily habits are powerful because of how they compound, but worrying too much about every daily choice is like looking at yourself in the mirror from an inch away. Okay, so remember how we talked about how do we know if we're too close or too far away? So he says if you're worrying about it every day, you're too close. You can see every imperfection and lose sight of the bigger picture. Okay, you're getting too much feedback. Periodic reflection and review is like viewing yourself in the mirror from a conversational distance. So the Goldilocks, okay? So periodic review. So every 3 months, maybe every 6 months. That's your face right here in the mirror. If you're looking at everything every day, it's too close. Oh man, I messed up. I didn't do this or whatever. And if it's too far away, you're not seeing the reality of the truth of what you're not doing, right? All right. So that is key. How to break the beliefs that hold you back, child. He said it's pride because you feel you are one way and you can't be open to other things. Just start with getting an identity and finding some habits and go from there. Remember, these are advanced solutions. Now this is what I'm going to end with. Okay. And I made a mistake on this. Remember I said my identity is I want to be an herbalist? I was wrong. Why? He said when you're choosing your identity, tying said identity to yourself or to a noun, basically, ties you to that thing. And when you no longer have that thing, who are you? So for example, if you say, I'm a pro football player, and then you tear your ACL and now you're working at Lowe's or Home Depot, but your identity was tied to being an NFL player. Now that you're not one, you're crumbling and falling apart because you put all the eggs in that basket. Oh, I'm a doctor, and you just got sued for malpractice. You got to close down your practice. You're on the run. No, I'm just kidding. When you tie yourself to a profession or to a noun, I am this. I am a CEO. I am what example does he give? I'm a soldier, like I'm a Marine, right? I'm an Air Forceman because Air Forcemen are very cocky. When you tie yourself to that, he says you become brittle, meaning once you no longer have that identity, you just crumble and fall apart. Okay. So redefine yourself such that you get to keep important aspects of your identity, even if your particular role changes. So he says, I'm an athlete becomes I'm the type of person who is mentally tough and loves a physical challenge. So you see how he took it from tying yourself to a noun, to a certain thing, to the act. Remember how we talked about action? The act, okay? I'm the type of person who is, and then you give the adjectives for what an athlete does, right? I'm a great soldier transforms into I'm the type of person who was disciplined, reliable, and great on a team. All traits of a soldier. So basically, when you're doing your identity, start with I'm the type of person and then choose your adjectives. So for that homeschooler who wants to be more hip and fun, I'm the type of person who is outgoing, who is open-minded, whatever, okay? And that would transform into I'm a great homeschooler, okay? Or I'm a fun homeschooler or whatever it is. The final one he says is I'm the CEO. That translates into I'm the type of person who builds and creates. This is something good when you're teaching your children life skills, when they're trying to figure out. By the way, we're going to end this because I've given you a lot of information and that was really the key, the gist of it. But listen, this is key. This is something you can do immediately with your children. When your babies are young, they say, oh, I want to be a firefighter when I grow up. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a teacher, whatever. And that's cool. But as they're getting older and they're trying to figure out their place in the world, it's really good to shift from associating themselves with a noun, with a profession, with character traits, because they can take those character traits and plug it into anything that they want. Okay. The character traits are things that we want them to have for life, right? And so if you pick those, then strong character traits, then you'll be strong in those traits with anything you decide. You'll be successful with whatever you want to do. Okay. So long as those traits align with whatever they want to do in life. But right now, my son's in high school. He's around a lot of kids. They don't know what they want to do when they grow up. Parents are saying, oh, do you want to be an animator? Do you want to be, a doctor? Do you want to be, a businessman? How about saying, hey, do you want to be a creator? Do you want to be someone who builds something, who provides a service? Do you want to be a person who helps and rescues people? When you start thinking in terms of what is my child good at, what are they drawn to personality wise, what kind of adjectives can we put on that? Okay, now let's see how we can take those traits that are inherently you, that we see that are you, and things that you also like to do for now. Let's see how can we match that up with career paths. Okay. And so that's a simple way to help your child try to get their grounding for what they might want to do in the future, instead of just throwing a title that really has no meaning to them. Even if they go visit a professor, or the person, and they have career day, they still don't really know. But if they know that these are things within them that they like, that they can gel with, then it'll be a lot easier to figure out, okay, let's try this out. It's just one way to skin the cat. All right, guys, that is it. Does anyone have any questions? These are the longest book club gatherings. This is my first go at it. I knew it would be messy. In future, if we have any more, I'm really gonna do a different platform where we all can kind of come on and contribute, and we can get more out of it. But I do want you guys to know, if you don't take anything away from this, and I might have a wrap up like next week where I just kind of just summarize everything, have the key points, like bullet points that you can, take away and start applying, immediately. So I'm trying to see what I'm going to do, because next week I'm doing all of my curriculum reviews. But if anything else, think of your identity in terms of traits instead of titles. Think of your identity. Everything starts with the identity. And then do your daily scorecard, your whole day. This is important. And then think of the habit that you want to work on. Just get started with that. Don't worry about all this other stuff. You can always come back to these videos later on or get the book and further your knowledge. But if you don't start, nothing's going to happen, right? There will be no 1% increase. So just start by figuring out your traits, okay? And just Google top 100 character traits just to get started, just to kind of see what gels with you. Or if there's something that you want to work on, like I want to work in herbalism. I want to be an herbalist. I want to be able to heal my family and to enhance or improve their health. So there's two things I want to do. I want to be able to help them to be in the optimal health that they can be. And also, should they fall sick, I want to be able to nurse them medicinally from herbs in my garden. So those are things I want to do. So I'm the type of person who wants to help and heal others. Hey, that's my identity. Let me write that down before I forget. I am the type of person, and this pen's going to go out of ink too. I'm going to write in the back of this book. I am the type of person, y'all heard it here. See, so you use the trait, I am the type of person. And then I just chose 2 character traits. I'm the type of person who wants to help and heal others. Oh, who does that? Doctors, teachers to some extent, the way this world is now, healers, herbalists. So, but that's a starting point. That's a starting point to help you figure out what kinds of identity do you want. I'm the type of person who wants to make others around me. I want to please other people. Or I'm the type of person who, whatever. Just write it down. Think of the field, the category: health, finances, relationships, homeschooling, homesteading. Think of those like kind of life categories and think of how your traits can be used in any of those categories. Finances. I'm the type of person who saves, and what else would you do? I'm the type of person who saves money. I don't know. For finances. Or I'm the type of person who wants to retire at 45. I don't know. But put that little adjective or not adjective, put that character trait, That's why I said just Google, like, character traits, okay? So you can kind of get an idea and then go from there to kind of help just get you thinking and figuring out, okay, we're going somewhere with this. Any questions so far? Oh shoot, I didn't see any of these comments. Oh, y'all, I'm sitting here thinking that I'm not getting any more comments because usually when I get a new comment, I get a little red little dot thing. Hey guys, I hope these comments are not really old. Hey Malibu, great career class idea. What type of person are you? What type of person do you want to be using adjectives? Yes. Oh, thank you, Malibu. Kamika says, yes, that last one right there is the best advice. Okay, I don't remember which one that was. I think it was just get your identity. And then use it look for traits, not titles. Then the children can research careers based on those adjectives. Yes. You see, you got a little girl, a little boy, and anybody in the house is hurt, they go running looking for some band-aids. They got 5 stuffed animals, and every stuffed animal's got a head bandage. It got stickers for the boo-boos, band-aids. You're like, okay, this child likes to help people, likes to comfort people. Okay, let's see what professions kind of do that, Or you might have to combine something and come up with something in your own lane, right? So that's the beauty of homeschooling. You can sit and marinate, watch your child, speak with your child, and they're never too young, right? And just see how that evolves, right? But once they get knowledge of it, once they start having awareness of things, then they can really take ownership of that. So, oh man, if I were to start over with kids with the knowledge of this book, baby, child. So anyway, guys, that concludes our Books and Peeps book club, Atomic Habits by James Clear. I hope you guys enjoyed this book. I will be in the future showing you the fruits and the what's the opposite of fruits? The mistakes or failures, putting this into action. I'm actually doing 2. One is the herbalist, the other is private. I might show y'all. So I'm doing 2 identities, right? Okay, so remember, you don't have to just do one. You got 2 things you want to work on, you can go ahead and proceed, at will. Just be mindful of what's going on in your life and how much time you want to sit and devote to those 2 habits. Okay. Any other questions or comments? We will wrap it up. And thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. These lives can be really, really long, and I so appreciate you guys giving me your time on a Thursday night. Y'all don't realize how much I appreciate that. On the way out, please hit that like button to encourage people to watch these long videos, and that would help me out so much. Next week will be curriculum reviews. So I saw the polls. All y'all want that math. Y'all want those math reviews. So we will be doing math reviews followed by writing reviews. So we got a lot to talk about. Absolutely a lot to talk about. Anyway, love you guys. I will see you next week. I'm not sure when. I might we are doing spring break next week. So I might just pre-record some of my curriculum videos for you guys before I go live. But we'll see. Yes, great job. In 3 months, we should be able to do an action follow-up. Oh, Malibu, that would be great. Let me write that down. Action follow-up. Action follow-up. That sounds fabulous. Integrity report. Action follow-up plan. Yay! All right. Woo! Well, we did it. Thank you guys. I love you so much. I will see you sometime next week. Enjoy your upcoming weekend and either stay cool in this heat or stay safe from these tornadoes and all the things that are going on in this country right now. I love you guys. I love you guys. Peace out.